I'm going to go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about Soil Health Partnership. I'm sure a lot of folks in the room have heard of Soil Health Partnership and a little bit of what we're up to. Some folks in here are quite familiar with us and great partners of ours. So I'll go over kind of an overview and give some updates and hopefully share some exciting things going on with Soil Health Partnership. So Soil Health Partnership is a research initiative of the National Corn Growers Association, and we are a farmer-led initiative. We have translational research sites, 140 of them across 14 different states. You can see our map up here, and it keeps growing and expanding each year, which is really exciting. We have all sorts of interest from new crops, new soil regions, new potential partners, and so it's very exciting to see that interest grow and expand. Most of the dots on the map, if you can tell from where you're seated, are blue. Those blue dots represent trials where we are comparing cover crops to non-cover crop systems. There's a handful of reddish colored dots, and those are our tillage sites, and then there's some that are kind of an orangey color that are our nutrient management sites. And so most of our sites are those cover crop compared to non-cover crop trials, and part of that reason is that we are a farmer-led initiative, and so we are working with the farmers on what they're most interested in, and currently that's kind of the management strategy that most of them are interested in testing. One of the things that we kind of flip on its head compared to some other models is, as a field manager, when I would go out and talk to farmers, instead of starting with, here's a management strategy I think you need on your farm, I would talk to them about what are their soil concerns on their farm? What are the things that are limiting your yield potential on your farm that you can't breed into a plant or put in a box and spread? And how can we fix those through a management system? We also do a lot with communication and education, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation with some new work that we're doing. And then obviously many folks in the room are quite familiar with our collaboration and partnership that we do with a lot of different organizations, and I'll talk a little bit particularly about the partnership that we have with the Institute as well as the Nature Conservancy and kind of how it relates to the work through the grant through FAR. Our mission is to provide qualitative data to help farmers enhance sustainability, farm economics for generations to come. Project approaches, so this is kind of things that we're currently engaged in and working on. So we do have the network of research sites, and we are working to expand that into new geographies. We recently started a partnership with the National Wheat Growers Foundation, and so expanding what we've learned kind of in the core of the corn and soybean belt into wheat growing areas and figuring out what that means for those farmers and what their soil health concerns are and what management strategies they're interested in learning about. And then we're also working on new enrollment options so that we have more opportunities for farmers to engage with our research in different ways, and I'll talk about those here in a little bit as well. We're also working on targeting strategies and tools, and mostly what those are looking at is figuring out what partners that we're already connecting with that we maybe can connect with in new ways through workshops where, you know, if we're starting a partnership with the wheat growers, how do we have a workshop with them to be able to make sure that we don't have any of the kind of learnings along the way that we had kind of cutting our teeth in the I states, figuring out how we can make those transitions faster with new partners. And then also working on the modeling tools that we have, a few different efforts looking at different kinds of modeling. We are also using a framework to build relationships and increase our staff to be able to kind of address some of the gaps that we have in being able to provide resources to farmers, and then we're also working on marketing. Recent achievements from 2018, we are up to 115 of our full partner sites, and those are across 14 states, and I'll get into the differences between our full partner sites and this pilot that we're doing of the associate program, and then we also, like I said, are expanding into new crops and new geographies. We've been working on the workshops, and then we're also, as I said, working on modeling and data extrapolation. We also have been working on getting funding for our science team to be able to hire additional staff to help kind of wrangle this massive database of on-farm trials. So in terms of the new enrollment options, some of you have probably heard a little bit about this. We started off with our full partner sites, and now we have options for associate and associate light. So the full partner sites are 4 replications of 2 treatments. We do 1-acre sampling grids. We have routine soil samples that are stratified 0 to 2-inch and 2 to 6-inch soil samples, as well as a 0 to 6-inch soil health test that is taken and sent to Cornell, as well as down to Haney's lab. We have aerial imagery that's flown in season, as well as collecting the calibrated combine yield data. We collect all of the management information about the plots, so that's all kind of the agronomic data of the planting rates, the hybrids, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, all of those sort of things. And then these full partner sites, since they're so data intensive, we have field managers out there on the landscapes that go out and visit with these farms and help in that data collection process, since it is so time consuming. And then we also have field events and outreach events associated with each of our full partner sites. So as you can imagine, the full partner sites are quite time intensive, and it takes quite a bit of collaboration to get all of this work done. And it's not always feasible that we would have one of these on every operation. And so how do we create new ways for farmers to engage and learn more about their soil health without having to take on such an intensive research project? And that's where we kind of enter into this new pilot program that we have for this year, where we're just doing a simplified comparison of a management system that they're interested in trying and what they've already been doing. And we have routine and soil health samples that are pulled here as well, but we're doing them on a much less intensive basis, so we're not doing the 1-acre grid sampling. We have aerial imagery that's flown and yield data, and the crop input and management information is also still collected, but in a very simplified, kind of reduced detail. And then we have automated results and data collection through existing agronomy networks, and then we have the automated reporting as well to be able to get that information out faster. So as I said, we have our 140 farms across 14 states, which this kind of gives you a sense of the volume of data that generates. We have over 300 site years worth of crop input data. We have over 20,000 soil samplings, aerial imagery for 4 years, strip level yield points, and those are just the strip levels across averages. Then once you start digging in beyond that, you can get into the spatial variability of the point by point yield data from the combines. And then we also have crop scouting notes that are kind of opportunistically collected where it makes sense. As you can imagine, running on-farm trials, there's a lot of variability happening out there on the landscape. And so as much as we collect crop scouting notes, and we have some awesome field staff that are working on new ways of collecting that information. And then we also, like I said, have a few different modeling projects. This particular one has 250 million model runs looking at erosion, soil quality index, nitrogen leaching, carbon sequestration, and nitrous oxide emissions. So in terms of the impact that all of that data collection and research is having, we have, as I said, events throughout the year. Last year for the 2017 kind of field day and event season, we had over 60 events reaching 30 to 40 million acres. We have an awesome social media presence, and we have almost 400 million social media impressions. And we also had over 415 stories covering Soil Health Partnership farmers, which is really awesome. That's more than a story a day in 2017. And part of that comes through the awesome partnerships that we have in the room, where we have a great farmer who's doing awesome research with us, and then they also are sometimes engaged with some of the other programs in the room. And so we can work collaboratively to get that message out there to other farmers and other folks out there working on the landscape. Our research area, kind of the footprint we have just in our research, is 3,800 acres of cover crop research, 57 acres of cover crop and tillage. We have 354 acres in nutrient management trials, and we have 342 acres in tillage trials. So that's a grand total of 4,556 acres. So kind of where we're headed and the next things coming for Soil Health Partnership, we are continuing to build and work on the associate and associate-light models. This year we have been really working hard to get input along the way of the process instead of fully building something and throwing it out there. We're working one-on-one with various retailers and farmers to make sure that as we're building the program, we can be nimble and adjust it to fit exactly what is most useful and integrates with existing tools. We also have our grower data platform and our new website that it's going to be launching. And then, as I said earlier, we're expanding into new regions and new cropping systems. And then continuing on the modeling work with UNL and UW, and the specific modeling work that this is looking at is the ways in which we can utilize our existing research to help inform others that are in similar cropping systems or soil types. And then we also just launched a new social media campaign. And so if you, want to check us out on social media, I'll have those up at the end. But there's a whole bunch of new content coming out, and so be sure to follow Soil Health Partnership on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, all of those channels. So in terms of kind of the partnership that we're talking about here today, and what I feel like one of the greatest values that we have as these three organizations working on this big project together is that as Soil Health Institute is working across these long-term research studies and doing a really intensive dive into all these different metrics, it's not feasible for us as Soil Health Partnership to do those on all of the on-farm sites that we have. And so when farmers are asking me questions about how does this relate to the work that some university person's doing, or how does this work relate to the USDA, or what are like the premier scientists in this area interested in, and what are they working on? That's where I can kind of reference the work that Soil Health Institute does and say this is the way in which what we're doing on the ground on your farm relates to these larger efforts to really build the scientific database and community around what these measurements are and how to utilize them. And then kind of on the other side of things, when farmers I'm talking to are interested in, okay, how do I tell people about what I'm doing and make it meaningful to my landlord that is sitting in Oklahoma City or New York or something and doesn't really understand the day-to-day of my farm? How do I take this information about my soils and make it useful to them? Or if they're talking about selling their grain and they're wanting to be able to communicate to the purchasers of their grain why that grain was produced more sustainably potentially than another person's, and that sort of context of how can I tell people what I'm doing and have it be valuable for my operation. And that's where we can work with the Nature Conservancy and the communications efforts that they have, the connections they have to those supply chain partners, as well as to the non-operator landowners, and kind of better understanding who those folks are and what they're interested in. Really kind of helps bridge those two sides of the kind of nitty-gritty boots on the ground that we're doing through the Soil Health Partnership research sites. So with that is our contact information. I highly encourage you to go check it out. We have our website as well as, like I said, the new social media work that we're doing. So thanks.